take it machine gun.
Okay, we're gonna put some machine gun on him. Okay, 3-1, did you have him in sight, jumping that canal? Okay, Clark, just open up on that damn, palm there. You see where he crossed?
The other. Now, 1631, he's got an AK, so watch it. Charlie 3-1, we've got him down here with AKs right now. Haven't taken any fire yet. We're putting some rockets on him.
Roger that. You were kind of 3-1 saying it. Roger that, about out here.
Goddamn rockets.
He's got some DC with AKs. They're putting rockets on him now.
Roger that, put rockets on.
Okay, Clark, go ahead and open up on him.
Go ahead, run.
My name is Chris Russo. Today is 12/24/2024. This is the Enemy of the Status Quo podcast. I'd like to thank all you castaways, hooligans, punk rockers, and outlaws out there, and pirates for joining in. Today we have a special guest. His name is Aaron Lewis. Aaron Lewis served from 2005 to 2010 in the United States Armed Forces and the Army. Then he served 2 years in the reserves from 2010 to 2012. He left, I believe his highest rank would have been E4. Hi, how are you doing today, Aaron? It's good to see you.
Good, Chris. Good seeing
Glad
you.
to have you on the show. So is that right? You left in 2012? Was that the end?
Yeah, that was my second discharge.
Okay, awesome. So I got a couple questions for you. People are always interested to know, and it's a great way to kind of work things out in the beginning, just keep things smooth. So I'm just curious, if you ever carry, and if you carry, what is it you do carry? I personally can show you. If I was going to do a pocket dump, I carry CZP-07. Do you carry anything?
I keep a firearm in each vehicle. I don't
Okay.
carry on my person.
Carry a knife?
Oh, pocket knife all the time.
Yeah. Anything. What do you like?
Firearms. I can't really carry a firearm on my person because of my line of work.
Okay. No, I get it. Some people can, some people can't.
Right. Well, I'm a pipe welder, so if I catch a
Right.
spark in my chamber somewhere,
Right.
like in a revolver or whatever,
Sure.
it's bad juju.
Yeah, I get it. So do you carry a knife with you every day?
Yeah, I carry a pocket knife for sure.
Any particular brand or something that's your favorite?
It was a Cabela's brand folding knife. I think it's about a 3-inch blade, and I hand forged a new blade
Okay.
to replace the old one. So
Nice.
I have what you call a layered Damascus pocket knife.
Okay. And so currently you weld, but you also tinker around and do some blacksmithing, isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How long have you been involved in blacksmithing?
Probably 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that when you first started kind of going hands-on, or did your interest in it start earlier than that?
I'd say that was when I was hands-on. I never really gave blacksmithing any consideration
Okay.
until I got hands-on. My interest in it probably sparked maybe a year and a half prior to me actually starting doing it.
Did you come across it on forums or just see a video or something and go have like kind of an aha moment where you were just like, that looks cool, I think I got to try that?
Well, it's a really popular topic, but a friend of mine has swayed my opinion. It actually started from watching the TV show Forged in Fire.
Okay.
I'm like, yeah, I don't necessarily want to make blades, but I'm already a pipe welder. I like
Right.
metal work, and
Right.
let's try this out. So I tried a few blades, and I thought, it's not really for me. I like the traditional blacksmithing, the look of it, and making different stuff. It's not just the same thing all the time. So I started dabbling in it, and I was horrible at it.
I think one of the
ended up-
first times we talked, I thought you had made some wrought iron, like stands or flower holders or something like that.
Yeah, that was actually recent. That was just bar stock.
Okay.
We're gonna get into some. We're gonna get into the weeds and some nerdville here. Wrought iron is pretty uncommon anymore. It's
Okay.
Just bar stock.
Okay.
But yeah, I just made some flower hangers. Kind of just down and dirty, but
There's so much to know about steels in so many applications. You know, behind me here, I have a number of swords, and I actually have a number of swords on that wall. And sword steels get like really crazy, and knife steels, like the modern knife steels. Some of the gun steels are actually pretty simple, like 4140, 4150, Arsenal steels, and then your 416 stainless. Some of those have been around forever, but there's always some interesting stuff going on with metals, and then how it applies to the particular thing that you're doing. Like, you can go so down the rabbit hole with metals, it's unbelievable. You know, I'm always fascinated.
I contemplated going to school for metallurgy, but there's nothing close to where I'm at, and I wasn't going to leave my son again. So
now you're currently in South Dakota, right?
Yeah, I am now.
And what's the weather like today?
Well, it's fairly chilly. We had a fog roll through, and all the trees and everything you can see is covered in a thin layer of ice.
Okay, so you guys got some sub-freezing temperatures. We've been right around there too. I'm 600, 700 miles south of you in Oklahoma, and we've had some freezing weather in the mornings, but usually by midday it's like 40 something degrees or something right now. So I want to ask you a question. So where were you born? What state were you born in?
I was born in Columbus, Nebraska.
Okay. And do you know how big a town Columbus, Nebraska is?
The last census I can remember, it was 22,111.
So not that big of a town. And is that where you went to elementary school, or were you just born there?
No, I was born there, and after I was born, I was a couple years old, my parents' relationship fell apart. My mom met another guy, and by the time I was school age, I think I went to kindergarten in Osceola, about 45 minutes south of Columbus.
Okay.
I never actually went to school in Columbus. I never went to school one day ever in the town I was born in. We jumped around in smaller rural schools.
Small little podunk towns.
Yeah.
A couple thousand. Little towns,
Yeah,
a couple
best.
thousand. Yeah, okay.
Best.
I got you. And what was that like growing up that way in small towns? Did it make you closer to people? Did you have closer friends, or what was the experience like for you?
It was the opposite for me, because I was the new kid every couple of years.
I got you.
Because I didn't come from wealth, so we had to move every once in a while, and I think I went to like 6 or 7 different schools growing up. So being the new kid every couple, 3-4 years, you're not real popular, because all the other kids already know each other.
Right, you're the odd guy out. Everybody.
Right, so you're the guy that they pick on, and it wasn't very fun.
You just don't have that foundational relationship of being around them since kindergarten, first grade. I get you. I kind of was in the same boat.
Somebody.
Right.
I'd always find somebody. There'd be one other kid that was a degenerate, and I'd hang out with that one.
Right. Right. No, I'm with you. Completely with you. I was like, I think I might have showed you a picture. I was like one of the only white kids in my class in Hawaii. And
I don't know if I saw a picture, but I've heard.
Well, yeah, and it was you know, racism there is a totally different perspective, because if you're white and you're the only white kid in your class, you're the one that's getting it all, right? It's not, you know, yeah. So I get it. I get it. Where'd you end up going to high school at?
I graduated from Genoa Public. They named it Twin River.
Okay. How many people were in your graduating class?
I think it was 41.
Oh, okay, that's pretty small.
But we had two others. I think two others passed away during school before we graduated. So it's still pretty small.
Right. I was in a graduating class of like 3,000.
Yeah,
and one of like 10 schools, you know, in the city. So, you know, like 30, 40,000 kids, you know, and what was high school like for you? Did you do all of high school in one town, or did you go to different towns?
No. Funny enough, because I bounced around so much, I went to Monroe Public School, starting out, transitioning from elementary to junior high, and then I moved in with my father, and I ended up going to Silver Creek for a couple of years, and that was during junior high. And then the two other schools, Monroe and Silver Creek, those counties shut the schools down. They couldn't afford the budget anymore, so they closed those two schools, and they shipped us to Genoa.
Did they consolidate the funds from the ones that they shut down? And
Yep, it was a consolidation. They shut down two schools and sent them to the third one, which is the largest. So now we have three schools all in the same school, and I had already been to school with the two previous towns. So
okay,
it was kind of a weird situation.
Yeah, that's kind of different.
Right.
And how'd you do in high school? Did you?
I was terrible. I was a horrible student. I hated being there. When I found pot, all I did was smoke weed. Didn't give a shit. I didn't get along with the classmates all that well because I'd already been to two of the other schools, and I knew who I didn't want to talk to or didn't want to hang out with. And
now I'm guessing this is in the 90s. Is that when you were in high school in the 90s? Or
it'd been late 90s. I graduated in 2003.
Oh, okay, all right. So you're like me. I went to high school in '89 and got out in '93. So you went to high school in 2009, or 1999, then got out in 2003. Yeah. Okay. So we're about a decade apart. All right, I got you. Yeah. Was the pot any good in Nebraska, or was it hit and miss? I mean, just curious. I lived in California at the time, so we had some of the best, some of the best.
You didn't have any Christmas tree and Kush very often. Most of it was like Mexican red hair.
I got you.
You get a little poofy Christmas tree every once in a while, but not much.
I got you.
But you are 10 years older than me because I'm January 3rd. You're January 13th.
14th, actually. But
14th.
Yeah. Yeah, January 14th, 1975. I was born in 75.
Yeah, so
all right.
We're 10 years apart, almost to the
almost, day. Yeah. A difference of 11 days. Oh, wow, that's cool. So you go through high school, you're smoking pot, you get out of high school. Did you?
Well, I had other problems, actually.
Did you?
Yeah. The first time I ever tried meth, I was 14. So that's,
oh my,
right at junior high. So
yeah, meth was booming in the late 90s.
I was either smoking weed or doing meth.
Yeah, that's not good. I lost a lot of friends to that, or
yeah,
they got lost for like a decade and found themselves in a mess with it. That's one reason why I actually left California, was the area I was at. I lived in the poorest county in the state of California, Tehama County, and when I went there was only 80,000 residents, which is remarkably small for a state that has 33 million people, right? So this county had kind of an exclusive sort of super impoverished 80,000 people that live there. But anyway, so you got tangled up with methamphetamine, and where'd that take you?
Oh, nowhere good.
I bet.
Joining the Army was my breaking point. So I did it from the time I was 14, and as I got older and I started, working high school kind of jobs, the more I could afford, the more I was buying, the more I was using.
Right.
By the time that phase of my life was over with, I was a daily user. I mean, I was cutting lines on the toilet paper holder at work. It was pretty bad.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I graduated in 2003, still doing drugs, because I was young and I was a dumbass. But I knocked a girl up. I had my first son at 19, and I just barely graduated. Like, my grades were bad enough that my English teacher didn't want me back. She rounded me up to the next
Right.
to the next grade because she wanted me out.
I get it. No, I know people like that. I performed rather poorly in school. Even for how smart I was, school just was not my
I hated
gig.
it. I hated it too.
People I have ADHD, and so if you're not interested in the environment, you just check out and don't participate, and you do what you want to do, and that's what I did in school. And
Right. Coast through it.
yeah, I coasted through it. I did really well on tests. I'd come back, and oftentimes I was the curve. And I would get 100 on the test, and people would be kind of mad because we'd get grade on curve. So if somebody was like 96, everybody was graded comparative. But I would get 100 on the test, and everybody would hate me because I didn't do any of the work. And then my teachers would come to me at the end of the year, and they'd say, "Dude, you got an F. You never turned in any homework. The problem is I know you know this stuff. Like, if you would just do this one assignment, I'll give you a C and pass you." And that's kind of how that's how I got through high school. I couldn't stand it. And high school's a really difficult time for young people. It can be, especially because you're really immersed in you. You don't have like really expanded thinking outside of yourself. And, kids can be cruel if you're different in any way, shape, or form, and they can make it tough. But so you got out of high school, you got a girl pregnant, and you got out of high school in 2003, but 2 years later, you end up in the military. Tell me how you ended up at the recruiting station. Tell me how that came about.
Yeah. So I had a personal situation I'm not quite ready to talk about yet.
That's fine.
The relationship with my son's mother kind of fell out. And I went on a binger because I didn't know what, that's what junkies do.
Right.
So I just went and got methed out for like a weekend or whatever. After she left me, and I woke up one morning, it was a Saturday or Sunday morning, and I woke up out of my sleep going, I got to do something different, got to change my life.
Right.
So I just woke up, got dressed, and I went to look for a recruiter, but the recruiting station in my hometown of Columbus was closed that day, I assume because it was a weekend. And my vehicle was down at the time, so I borrowed my mom's, I don't remember what, Chevy Blazer or something, and I think her cell phone because I couldn't afford one, just in case I'd break down on the way. I think so Monday morning I grabbed her vehicle and her phone, and I went to the nearest recruiting station, which is Norfolk, about 45 minutes north, 45 miles, actually.
Is Norfolk in Nebraska also?
Yeah, it's like 45,
okay.
About 45 minutes.
I don't know where that town is. I know where Grand Island is and Lincoln and
that's wet. Yeah.
All the bigger towns. I've been in Nebraska myself, but I don't ever remember Norfolk, so I had to ask.
Yeah.
So you end up
north.
Okay, so you end up at the recruiting station. What time of day did you end up there, and who'd you talk to? Do you remember who you talked to?
Well, I don't remember exactly what, but I guess.
Did he give you a handful of lies and tell you to sign on the dotted line, or?
No,
did
he's
you-
a straight shooter. Actually, I got
Okay.
I got me a good one. So
Okay.
I don't know. I guess probably met him around 10 o'clock. Staff Sergeant Yoakum. I can't remember his first. Staff Sergeant Chad Yoakum. So Staff Sergeant Chad Yoakum in somewhere in 2005. If you hear this, actually I appreciate your good advice. So thank you for that. He told me it'll either make you or it'll break you. It ain't
Right.
for everyone. Some people bail out, but if you work the system, it could change your life, and it did.
What time of year was that? Spring,
Um,
fall, winter? Do you remember?
Early summer, I guess, because it took me about 3 months to pass a drug test, so they couldn't put me into MEPS yet.
Okay. Did he know?
Oh yeah, I told him
Okay.
right away. I said, yeah, I smoke weed. I've done cocaine before, but I haven't used any in a while, and I'm obviously going to have methamphetamines in my system. He says, that's fine. We're going to do a preliminary urine analysis, and we'll just monitor it until you're clean, and as soon as you're clean, we'll sign you up for MEPS and we'll ship you out. It
How
took a
hard
couple,
was it?
3 months.
How hard was it for you to get clean?
Honestly, I was so determined to get out of my situation and do something better with my life. I think I quit cold turkey and I didn't have a problem. I think we did 2 more tests before he shipped out. He actually came from Norfolk to my apartment to
Okay.
administer the UAs because
Okay.
he obviously wants the body counts, but I
Right.
needed to get going. So yeah, it's funny. My last UA with him, he brought the test strip, but he forgot a cup. And I'm like, fuck it. I grabbed a coffee cup out of the counter, pissed it, or out of the cabinet, pissed in that. He tested it and says, yep, you're good to go.
Do what you got to do to complete the mission, right?
Yeah, wash it or throw it away. Don't care. I'm never coming back to that cup.
Right. Let me ask you a question, just out of curiosity. I remember in the late 90s that just everywhere I was in or was traveling to at that time, and I was traveling a lot, it seemed like everywhere I was going to in rural America, there was like a methamphetamine problem in the background. Was that kind of the norm in the small towns that you were at, that there was just a segment of the population involved with methamphetamine at that time? Or were you
Yeah.
an unusual case?
No, it was around quite a bit. I mean, it didn't have to try too hard.
So it was there if somebody wanted it. In Podunk
Yeah, it might-
Town,
It might
Podunk
take a
Town,
couple
Nebraska. It
hours.
was right, but
It might take
you
a
were
couple
going to get
hours,
it.
but you could score it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. That's. It seemed like it was that way in the late 90s. Just everywhere I went,
Yeah.
all
So
throughout
this is-
America.
This is 20 years later or more, whatever it is, and now I'm in South Dakota and I still hear about it.
Sure.
Even in
Sure.
these small towns, it's still around.
Sure.
Everywhere.
Sure. So
Luckily for me, I don't have any cravings for it, so it doesn't bother me.
so this was summer. Did you go in the fall then?
Yeah,
Or-
I shipped
or
out
winter?
in October.
And where'd you
Shipped
ship out
in
to?
October. I went out of O'Hare in Omaha to Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic training.
And what was that? What was the ride like from Omaha, Nebraska to Kentucky? What was on your mind as you were going down the
Honestly,
road? Did you fly or did you drive? Were you taking in a bus or
No,
did you drive?
they flew me there, I think.
Okay. So what was going through your mind on that plane flight?
I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember any of it. I remember getting on a bus from the airport when I got to Fort Knox, and they got the little yellow footprints. That's where you walk, and when you get off the bus, they got little yellow
What was
footprints,
your
and that's where
first
you stand.
impression? What was your first impression when you saw Fort Knox? What was the first
Well,
thing? Do you remember
it
the
was
first thing you
dark.
thought in your mind?
It was dark out,
Okay.
so you can't really see a whole lot.
Okay.
There's street lamps in a parking lot, and they dump you off the bus. It was a long time ago.
Did you have any anxiety or fear or any thoughts like, what am I doing here? I want to go home or
Yeah, I imagine that I would have had what the hell did I do to myself moment.
Okay.
But my stepfather came from a military background. His father was a flight instructor post World War II all the way up into, I believe, the 70s. So he kind of had a 1950s military mentality already. So yelling at me, and screaming obscenities, it didn't really bother me. I just wanted to.
Was that your first experience, your first contact with military personnel?
You know, then they were doing shark attacks with drill sergeants. They wanted to ruffle you up and see how you're going to react. I just did what I was told. Don't bring attention to yourself. Do what you're told, and you'll be fine. And that was my strategy. I'm like, after I got past that, what the hell did I just do? That's what got me through. I just did what I was told. And I think probably about halfway through basic training, I thought, you know, this isn't so bad, really. I can handle this.
So, how long was basic training back then?
I did a condensed version because it was in the peak of
Iraq.
the war, and yep.
Yeah, Iraq was banging off. Afghanistan's banging off. You got full.
They were low on personnel, and it was close to Christmas time. So I assume that their employees wanted to go home too. So they.
I'm sure someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Fallujah and all that stuff started banging out in 2005, like the real.
Yeah,
I think that was 2005, and like, was it the first Marines division that went into Fallujah to secure or someone's going to shout out in the comments and tell me that I'm wrong, and that's cool.
From my recollections, the Marines couldn't secure Fallujah. They brought in a special unit from the Army to help them out. And I could be wrong too, but I think that was it. But that was the 30,000 troop surge that they were trying to get through.
Right. And so you were part of that.
Right. So they had to condense it.
So how many weeks was your basic?
I don't remember. I think it was like 2.5 months. So it wasn't a full
So
cycle.
like 10 weeks.
Yeah, probably 10, maybe 11.
Okay.
And I don't know if I even have that on record, but
did you come out of it enjoying it, or was it just a passing moment that you felt like you just had to push through?
It was empowering. Actually.
It was empowering. Okay.
Well, because I'd got the drugs out of my system.
Right.
my body was getting stronger, and I was learning self-discipline. I felt like a stronger person. No, it was I think it was good for me.
Okay.
I came home feeling pretty proud of myself, actually.
Awesome. Any highlights? Anything in particular that you that sticks out in your mind that happened to you in basic that you want to talk about, or anybody in particular that you remember that sticks out that you either admired or couldn't stand? We won't use their name, but if you have any stories.
I'd say it wasn't anything super significant. I'd say it was from what I've seen from when I went to basic till now. I'd say it was a basic course. I think I had great drill instructors though.
Any one drill instructor that stands out in your mind that was a mentor or just really did a great job doing it?
I think maybe just the last name, Drill Sergeant Powers. He was quite the asshole face in front of the group.
Right.
But if you'd ask him something off the side in private, he was super calm voice and very attentive. Like I had asked him why, what a TC is, because I didn't know.
What is a TC?
Tank commander.
Okay.
So he's in charge of the vehicle.
I gotcha.
He wasn't entirely sure the details either, but he believed it came from tankers. So even in a wheeled vehicle, the TC is the guy in charge. That's the front passenger, not the operator. Well, I had no idea. And he, in a really calm voice, explained it to me to the best of his ability. Like that makes a big difference when they're actually paying attention to you, but they have to treat the group a certain way because that's how unity in a military unit works. The hive mind.
Did you feel like basic training was substantive and it prepared you for your deployment, or were you still feeling like
No,
no,
it wasn't. It
There's
wasn't enough.
A lot of details left out, huh? A lot of
You know,
details
like
left
even-
out.
You know, we did live fire. You
Right.
got to crawl under the wire, and the barrels have got fake mortars in them, and they blow up, and sand's flying everywhere, and there's tracers going over your head. But that will not prepare you for a 60 millimeter mortar dropping 60 yards away.
Right.
You know, you can hear shit clanking behind you, and holy shit, I didn't get hit. Well, when they're doing a live fire in training, they're shooting a couple 100 yards over your head.
Right.
Yeah, that's different when you actually get hit. No, I don't. No.
And when it's incoming on you, there's a crack and a boom and a crack and a boom and shit's
Yeah.
bouncing all over the place. Yeah, I've
No, it wasn't enough. But when I did finally get to Baghdad, I think in about 3-4 months, I was pretty used to it. And
so
you calm down.
so from the time you went into basic to the time you were deployed, how much time was that?
I get right at 1 year.
So it took you
shipped from-
you had a year of training before you ended up.
I had
And-
just shy of 6 months of training, and I had right about 6 months of what I call mainstream service. And then we got an airplane, fly 17 or 18 hours to the box. You know?
Mainstream service, you mean being on the base, just on
Active.
base,
You're
doing
active.
whatever they asked you to do that day,
Yep.
whatever the task was is set out before you,
Yep.
whether it's fucking cleaning shit, preparing shit, repairing shit, whatever the fuck it is they ask.
Yeah, I just call it mainstream. So yeah, I
I
was
gotcha.
doing active duty service.
And where were you stationed when you were doing that?
Well,
We-
it's called
we-
Fort Fort Hood. I don't know what they call it now.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they call Fort Hood.
That's back under the one of them cancel culture.
Yeah, I know it is Fort Hood, and that's down in Texas. So you went from Fort Knox to Texas.
No, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for 88 Mike training. And
Okay,
then I
so you
to
went
Fort Hood.
Knox, Fort Leonard Wood, then Fort Hood.
Yep.
Okay, and what is 88 Mike training for those who don't know? Because I don't know. I'm one of those.
Transport troops and supplies with wheeled vehicles.
Okay, so like deuce and a
Whether it's
half,
Humvee,
six
yeah,
wheeled.
deuce and a half, 5 tons.
Okay,
Hemmets, PLSs. If it's got wheels, we drive it. 915s. I think they got different trucks now, but
What-
it's like a semi, but it's a militarized version.
just out of curiosity, what was your favorite vehicle to operate?
The 915 or the PLS. There's an LHS, which it has an extra axle and it doesn't steer as well, or a militarized semi cab.
Okay. How much do you have any idea of the gross vehicle weight on those things, or how big are they
Oh,
compared to
I-
like big as
I
a
don't know.
bus, 3/4 of a bus?
Ooh. Yeah, if I'd get them numbers probably completely wrong.
That's
I
all
knew
right.
that.
That's all right. You don't
I
have to
knew
lie
that-
to me if you don't have to. If you don't want to.
Right.
I was
I
just
knew
curious.
I knew that an upgraded Humvee with a stage 3 or 4 armor at the time was 12 or 13,000 pounds. That's just a Humvee.
Gotcha. And
Then
that's
our-
when they
then our-
added all the plates, the bulletproof glass, and
They have
usually
4
a
plates.
turret on the top for a
Yeah,
what a
hand
50.
crank or electric. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And then our bigger trucks was like the LHS and PLS. I want to say they were 60 or 80,000 with the armor on.
Now-
I could be wrong though. They're big trucks. I mean, they're a lot
So-
to handle.
So you had a year in the States, and then you deployed to Iraq. Do you remember what day you deployed to Iraq? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, specifically, no.
What year?
I want to say it was 2006. I want to say it was
2006?
September or October.
Okay. And was it like your entire battalion went to Iraq, or Did you just go
Yeah,
rotate
yeah.
out part of a battalion, or
It was our battalion. Yeah.
and what battalion is that?
15th BSB, that's Brigade Support Battalion.
Okay,
2nd
the
Brigade,
15th BSB, 2nd Brigade.
2nd BCT, Brigade Combat Team of the 1st Cavalry Division.
Okay, so you were attached to 1st Cav.
No, I was 1st Cav.
Okay, or I'm
15
sorry, you were
It's 15th BSB, 2nd BCT, 1 CD.
okay. 1st
15th
Cavalry
Brigade
Division.
of the 2nd Combat Team. Yeah.
Okay. And so you deploy to Iraq, and you, I imagine they flew you in. Did you go like C-130 commercial, or did you go into Kuwait or Saudi Arabia first, or?
Yeah, I think it was a. Well, I know it was a Boeing 767 or something.
Just like a commercial.
Yep.
Okay.
Into Kuwait. And then, I don't know, I think we were in Kuwait a couple, 3 weeks before they decided to, either they decided where we're going to go or they were going to disclose where we were going to go. There's a little bit of hold up time there usually.
Okay. And what was your first impression? You're getting off the plane. You're now 12,000 miles from home. They open the doors and you walk outside and you're in a foreign land, in a foreign, people are speaking a different language under a different flag with different rules, customs, and so on and so forth. And what was that first visual impression you had? Did you go? Were the planes landing on a U.S. base, or it was mostly a Western area, or did you guys land in just the capital of Kuwait and then they take you to a base? What was that like? What was your first impression?
Well, we landed at night, so I didn't see shit.
Okay.
I get to see a tarmac.
So once again, like Fort Leonard, like Fort Knox, you arrive at night and you can't see a damn thing. So you don't know what you got yourself into.
Right.
Nice. Was it hot at night? Or was it cold?
Yet. Okay. No, it wasn't hot yet. Because again, late fall at night, it wasn't too bad yet.
So do you remember your impression that first morning there? Do you remember that impression?
Sights, could not.
Sounds.
I remember by the time. Well, we had to take a bus ride for a while. Once we got off the bird, dark. You all just line up, march onto a bus. And I don't remember if it was an hour and a half or 3 hour drive. They're driving you through the desert.
Right.
And then sun break. You do get sun time, but the buses are curtained off, and you're not even supposed to peek, but we do.
Right.
We'd see cars driving around and maybe a camel on the way, but they pretty much keep us secluded from the general public there.
And so you said you were
base.
Yeah, what was that like? Do you remember the name of the base in Kuwait, or?
I'm getting the names confused back.
That's okay.
I mean, it's 20 years ago.
If you don't remember, you don't remember, maybe it just was not of that much consequence. And
I want to say it was Al Asad, because I think that's the main airport. Somewhere in there, I can't remember.
Okay. So how did you ingress into Iraq from Kuwait? Was that wheel transportation that you?
No.
Or were you flown in on like a C-130 or something like that, or how did they get you from Kuwait into Iraq, and where did you go first in Iraq, if you remember? Were you somehow outside the green zone, close to Baghdad, or?
I tell you, it's going to take me a few minutes to remember all that.
That's all right. We'd come back to it.
I think we took a C-130 from another airport in Kuwait to maybe it was the green zone, I forget. And however that was, we ended up from that airport taking Blackhawks, and that dropped us into our FOB. It was FOB Falcon.
In where?
FOB Falcon.
Okay, so you were in forward operating base Falcon, and
Correct.
and what do you know where that was at geographically located in Iraq? Was it like central Iraq, southern Iraq, northern Iraq?
I think it's
Or do you know its relative proximity of Baghdad?
it's west of Baghdad
Okay.
on the main highway. It was Route Jackson.
Okay.
So it's outside city limits. It's like
Right.
be like a suburb, but there's not really much city in between. It's a smaller town west of it. And I have to go check a map. If anybody wants to correct that, by all means, go ahead, because memory fades.
Right. So now you're in country. Did they give you a chance to get acclimated the first week or two, or did you jump
Yeah.
straight into work and they said, this is what's going on, this is what we're doing, welcome to the show, here's what
No,
we're
we
doing
have
tomorrow?
We have a handoff of, what do they call it?
Like we're command switches or something like
Yeah.
that, or okay.
Yeah, there's a change of command.
Right.
We got to take time to figure out where we're going to stay. If they don't have anywhere for you to stay, you're going to end up in a tent until some room of some sort opens up.
So like
We
the
actually
guys that
had-
were there before you, they had the rooms. The temporary guys that were just showing up, they went into tents until those
Yeah,
guys that
typically.
were vacated the rooms, and then you would go in and occupy that space. Is that kind of how that went?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I want to say it was some sort of barracks in the first place, because it was just tiny little rooms, but it was built like an apartment complex, a couple stories tall. We got this tiny little room.
Do you have any like memorable moments that you remember, like in the first couple of days of being in Iraq, that you were like, wow, this is really happening, or
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming, or
I mean, the whole place.
someone
is
trying to
surrounded
mortar
in-
the base or something, or
Oh yeah, our first couple nights there. I do remember quite a bit of that. The whole perimeter is either concrete walls or HESCO barriers.
okay, yeah,
Those are those 4x4s with the
right,
like hog paneling, and they fill them full
Right.
of dirt.
right.
But I think majority of the walls were concrete. Probably Alaska barriers are like 12 foot tall. Just mud, dirt, dirt everywhere. Nothing grows there.
So you're just out in the middle of the desert. There's
Kinda.
no water, but the Tigris and Euphrates, I think, go through.
Well, that's in the city. I don't remember
Right.
exactly where that. I think
Right, and that's
we're
where
at, but-
that's where civilization built itself around, and obviously you guys aren't in the middle of that. So
Right. Well, we operated there though.
so you guys would go from Firebase Falcon into Baghdad.
Yeah, my entire first tour, which was 15 months long, was all Baghdad.
How many tours did you do?
2.
You did 2 tours in Iraq,
Yeah.
and what was? Do you remember the first time that you heard enemy fire or something was going on? That
One of the first things I remember, like you just asked, I'm trying to gather these memories. One of the first things I saw was a little bitty, like a Nissan pickup truck. It was just full of bullet holes. And that was within the first day or two. So you're like, damn, you don't see that in the States. So there must be
Right.
something actually happening here.
yeah, not even in Compton or Stockton,
and then
California.
by night 3 or 4, we started taking mortar fire in the middle of the night. They'll disrupt you between midnight and 3 just to see how you react.
And what
So I
was
was there.
that, like a 120 millimeter coming, or
Couldn't tell you.
smaller? Or?
It was a long time ago, and I didn't know very much about mortars yet.
No, that's cool.
But by the time I finished my second tour, I could tell you if it was, roughly about how big it was. If it's 50 or 70 millimeter, you get used to it.
And did that become like a nightly thing, a weekly thing in the beginning?
Right away in the beginning, I don't remember what unit we took over, but they mortared the shit out of us for a couple weeks, and I assume command got sick of it So they started painting the giant calf patch on the side of our trucks. And our QRF, quick reaction forces, they'd go out and eliminate the enemy. So we'd stay there on the fob because we're truck drivers. We're not combat arms. We don't
Right.
go out and look for the enemy. We take cover on the fob, and they would dispatch the QRF. And if they caught them, they killed every one of them. Within 3 weeks of that, we didn't get mortared very much anymore.
So when you got there, you guys came under attack frequently, and base command said, "Hey, enough of this crap," and then began sending out these QRF forces. And how big was a QRF force? Was it a company-sized element? Do you know, or
That I couldn't
platoons?
tell you.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you that because, again...
Do you know their mobility? Were they mobile on the ground, or were they mobile air? Or
From what I understand, they were vehicular.
okay,
They're on wheels. But no, we were like I said, be like midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, and we start getting incoming, and you just start hearing explosions. So you either stay in the barracks or you go outside and you get into a concrete bunker. Depends on where you're at.
right.
If you're already outside, you go to a bunker. If you're inside, stay in the brick walls.
How long would these attacks go on? 15 minutes, 45 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours?
They were pretty brief. From what I understand, they would typically put a mortar tube in the back of a small pickup truck, and they would just drive around and lob them. And they wouldn't even aim. They're just testing you to see how you react.
I got you.
So we'd be bunkered down for maybe about a half an hour.
So they'd shoot and scoot, kind of try and be hard to locate, not very accurate and good at what they were doing,
Right.
and just trying to rabble rouse and see what they could.
They're testing the waters.
I got you. So what was your first trip like outside, if you remember, or just the first one you remember, or a distinct one you remember, the first time you went outside the fire base? What were you thinking? What kind of emotions you have the first time you were going out into Indian territory, so to speak? And
I was terrified, actually. Do we have a moment for a break?
Yeah, sure. One. All right, we took a little break there. So let's get back at it. You were leaving the base for the first time, and you had a lot of anxiety about that. Tell me what that was like, first time going out into Indian territory.
Well, again, it was... I have to admit, I was pretty terrified, but I also had a different mindset. So before I shipped out, I told my mother, I said, it's a good day to die. I was going through some, pretty emotional, personal issues.
And this was 2006.
Yeah. I kind of had the thought, like, let's just go get this over with, and I might not ever have to deal with it again. But you have to have the courage to step up to that,
Right.
Not knowing how things work, first tour, I was still a private E1. I barely had mosquito wings, they call them. The first patch of, or first rank that you get. So obviously I was afraid because I was somewhat familiar with mortars already, but I hadn't been on the roads.
And the enemy was trying to make you more familiar with mortars than you wanted to be familiar with them.
Yeah. I remember being afraid, but it is what it is. You signed up. You got to go do the job now.
So do you remember that first mission? Do you remember what were you trying to accomplish that first mission? Just bringing supplies to somebody, or?
Yeah, that's what we did. We were brigade support, so we didn't take supplies to other units or what they call long or line haul. We stayed local and we supported our combat arms units.
Okay, so you would go.
We have infantry and engineers, and
so you would support
guys.
them. The other elements
bring their
of
supplies to them.
Okay, so you would support the other elements in the 1st Cavalry Division that were on the line. So you were supplying them with their food, munitions.
Not typically munitions or food. We did have
Equipment.
Well, we had munitions. It's kind of a long story there. The AHA had actually been cooked off a couple of weeks before we got there.
What's an AHA?
An ammo holding area.
Okay. So you guys had an ammo holding area that,
And we had some munition specialists, but they drove their own trucks, had nothing to do with us. They would just jump in on our convoys. But we hauled like tires and engines and water and MREs and computer parts and
just the backbone material support to
just
keep
stuff
the vehicles up and running.
right.
The oil, the wiper fluid, all the nitty gritty nuts and bolts that everybody's got to have to keep things operational.
A lot of water. We hauled Connexes and Connexes of pallets of water.
Were they in water bottles or large containers or water bottles?
Standard water bottles you buy in a grocery store, but they were in pallets.
And so,
and sometimes we don't even know what's in it. It's just a crate. They put it on the truck. You strap it down. Make sure it doesn't fall off.
So you guys didn't have like water treatment facilities, and I imagine that most of the water available in Iraq is probably not of that great of quality. I'm going to guess.
We had, I think they're 92 Fox. I think that's the water guys. We had those guys available, and they had some of the equipment, but their MOS was basically inactive. They were just kind of there. So not actually doing their job, purifying water, they would just throw them guys into a gun truck. So there was our gunners were water purification specialists. They weren't.
How many gun trucks? So what did cover look like for the convoy? How big was a average convoy? How many gun trucks would be inserted in it? And
that would depend on how many VICs. VICs are vehicles. So you have VICs and PACs. Vehicles and PACs is personnel. To be considered a convoy, you have to have 3 vehicles or more. Well, you're not going to send 3 gun trucks out.
Right.
How many support vehicles are going out? If we had 7 to 10 cargo vehicles, they'd send 2 or 3 gun trucks. You get up to 13 to 20 cargo vehicles, you could have 4 or 5 gun trucks. So they'll have a lead gun truck. They know the route really well. You just follow them. You keep your tires on their path so you don't run over a detonation trigger. You maintain I think it's a 40-meter interval and under 40 mile an hour, and it's a pretty slow crawl. So we'd have.
How much spacing? Excuse me. How much spacing did you guys keep between the vehicles?
They told us always keep it like it was 30 or 40 meters. Well, to me, meters don't mean shit. So I would just look in the rearview mirror and split the difference between my gun truck and whoever's behind me.
Okay. All right. Hey. What was the normal size group that you ran with, or was it always different? Always, you just never knew how many. Or was there stuff like every Wednesday, no matter what, you're taking water to these guys because you know they're going to be out, and you're doing this on Tuesdays and Thursdays because you know they're going to need this? Was there some stuff that was kind of stable, or was it a situation where let's not ever do anything in a pattern and give the enemy the idea that we're going to show up here on Wednesday and give them an opportunity to lay the heat down on us? How was that kind of stuff handled? Because I'm sure certain units had to get stuff kind of on the regular, right? Everybody needs water, right? And they get, you would bring them X, and then they would probably try to hold X in a buffer in case something happened or something was destroyed or there was just a logistical problem in between. And so somebody had to get some kind of stuff on the regular. Did you guys just run a regular route or pattern, or did you guys try to keep the enemy guessing all the time?
We had some regular runs. I'd say we probably averaged between 7 and 15 vehicles for those regular missions. We hauled to the green zone quite a bit.
Now the green zone is the defended zone inside Baghdad that had
that was the Baghdad International Airport. That was
Port.
Saddam's palace. That's where the big swords are at. You see the
Right.
big swords over that highway part?
Right.
That was the green zone. Yep.
And
We hauled there
that's
quite a bit.
and that's where our like political attachments for the United States were located in the green zone.
The embassy.
Right, the embassy. So you have the Marines that guard the
whatever.
embassy, and then
Whatever you call it there,
probably
yeah.
some of the probably some intelligence assets and whatnot in the green zone. I don't know, maybe JSOC or somebody's got some command there, or MARSOC, or whoever's had elements there. I think I have a buddy. I hope he comes on the show. Mike, I'm going to send this to you. His name is Mike Stevens. He's a good kid I grew up with. I think he was in Iraq. Mike, I'm sure you're going to tell me if I'm wrong. I think he was in the green zone, and he did military intelligence. I've kind of asked him to come on. Right now he's hesitant, but I'm sure he's got interesting stories. So you went into the green zone, and the green zone came under fire a lot. I mean, that was like this really big buffer zone to try and keep the enemy out, and it was pretty saturated with kinetic elements to strike back at elements that may be a problem. Is that it? Do I understand this correctly, or is there anything I understand is wrong?
I probably can't elate on that a whole lot because I didn't get to the green zone. Well, we ended up getting an extended tour. So instead of doing 12 months, we ended up doing 15. So I think about seven or 9 months in, we packed up from Fob Falcon and moved into the green zone.
Okay, so you guys went from being outside the city, middle of nowhere in the mud and dirt, to inside the city with all the trash and burnt up cars and pock marks in the road and
we do special missions every now and then too. Kind of backtracking there a little bit.
No, that's okay.
So sometimes we go out with just a couple 3 vehicles and have a couple gun trucks, and we'd go out with the infantry or engineers and stuff too. It was kind of strange. The days in Fob Falcon were pretty, I'd say, mundane. It was kind of like you said, it's pretty routine. When we got into the green zone, that's when shit started going all over the place, and we were doing some day missions too, which is not normal for what we do. We typically operate at night.
Right, because you have an advantage. You have the cover of darkness, and
we can read patterns better. There's less people out. There's less traffic.
Right.
You could study.
And so if there's a bunch of dudes hanging out on a corner, or you start seeing a bunch of unusual activity from military-aged males, you could know something's up, because
what we typically looked for was an absence of personnel.
Oh, really?
When they clear, that's because they know there's a bomb there. And
they know something's going to happen. They know something's going to go down.
So they clear out. So if you go down the city in the daytime and there's fucking nobody there, you might want to stop and reroute.
Okay. Yeah, because the locals know what's up. Right.
And they're not going to tell us.
Right. They're caught in the middle between who knows how many warring factions.
Mm-hmm.
The government of Iraq at the time, U.S. forces, anybody assisting U.S. forces, the Iraqi army that had to be stood up by the new state of Iraq, or whatever you want to call it. And then, you had all these different militia groups, Sunni factions, Shia factions, some that were associated, Shias that were associated with Iranian factions, Republican Guard, and elements like that. You had I'm trying to think of the guy's name, the religious leader that was part of the whole thing with Fallujah. I'll think of it here in a minute. Was it the Muqtada al-Sadr army? Is that right?
I couldn't tell you. I never went to Fallujah.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'll think of it. So you guys end up in the green zone. What was that like? My dog's coming to visit me, by the way. I think someone's trying to tell her not to. But
it was kind of wild.
It was just like the Wild West in the green zone, just hearing stuff all night. And
yeah, there's gunfire all the time. Like, we used to get pretty close to Sadr City, and that place was lit up. There's always gunfire and shit blowing up in Solder City.
Yeah, I think that's his name, Muqtada
Once-
al-Sadr. I think that was the religious guy who had the Sadr army that, kind of consolidated in Fallujah and forced all that. I think that's right. I think that's Muqtada al-Sadr. Someone in the comments will tell us that we're wrong or we're right or whatever. But
and that's fine. I wouldn't comment either way because honestly, that's way beyond me.
right,
When I was sitting there, I wasn't studying what was going on around me. I'm just trying to focus on what I was doing. And now that
Right.
I'm out, I
you had a
couldn't care
job to
what's
do,
behind
and
me,
your
but-
your attention
Right.
had to be on the job.
I was there to work. That was it.
The politics of it didn't matter. Just I imagine it was
I-
getting home in one piece. That
The most political thing that I can remember, I mean, aside from Barack Obama being elected, I think that was in my second tour. Maybe it was my first. I forget. The most significant political thing that happened to me was I was about 41 miles away when they hung Saddam. That was like our Christmas present or New Year's present that year. I think
Right.
it was- I remember, was it January 1st or something like that? Or the 26th of December?
I
forget.
thought it was in the winter that they hung him.
It was.
Kind of
I was-
unceremoniously.
Yep.
I remember seeing the video and thinking, "Wow, this is bonkers." Did you guys ever get that? I know they handed them out to SIF guys, like the deck of cards that had
No.
all the. That was just among the SIF guys, the
Yeah,
deck of
that's-
cards.
That had nothing to do with us. Those were, I assume, special forces where they were
Yeah.
taking out strategic targets. No.
Right.
And they didn't even tell us about that. We
Right.
don't have that. We're not privy to that information.
What was one of the scariest moments that you remember? Was there
Oh, yeah.
anything that just like tops the cake, or one time where you just thought, I wonder if we got a handle on this, or had some doubt playing in your mind? Was there any, just one thing that just like one time just stood out among all the other times that, or was it just all just at the same level all the time?
I have two significant events for myself. There are others, but the two biggest for me was, I'm going to take that back. 3. I can't tell the exact time sequence, but you remember 2007, the Blackwater scandal, war crimes?
Yes.
When Blackwater shot up all them civilians at an intersection?
Yes.
I watched their Kiowas shoot those people.
Did you know what was
What?
happening at the time?
No.
Or
no,
you just-
no.
You were
didn't even know that
watching
they
it.
were-
You were watching it unfold, and then you later learned that that's what took
We didn't
place.
even know that they were mercenaries at the time. We just knew there was gunfire going on outside the wall. There's Kiowa helicopters flying around. And then, I don't know if I went on mission that night or not, but within a day or two, those vehicles were towed back inside the green zone walls, just littered with bullet holes. And then I suppose within the next week or so, things started to come out. That was Blackwater, shot a bunch of civilians in the middle of an intersection. And we were told at the time that they did that because the traffic wouldn't move out of their way. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I halfway watched that incident because the walls are, I don't know, what are they, 15 feet high? So it's not like
Right.
you can just look out and watch.
Right.
But I
Yeah,
watched
they're
the Blackwater
substantially
incident
high.
go down. Yeah. And then the largest detonation by the enemy forces. I was there for that. That was outside I think it was the north wall of the green zone.
What was that? A vehicle-borne IED, or?
Yeah, they packed some sort of van. I remember it being a van. I could be wrong too, but they packed the van full of explosives. They HME or confiscated UXOs. Like our stuff doesn't go off.
Right.
They'll go harvest the guts out of it, or they'll
Right.
make their own stuff. So they mixed up a bunch of explosives, packed it in some kind of van, and drove it under an overpass on the busy highway. And when they hit the bottom of the overpass, they detonated it. I was probably a quarter of a mile away, and it knocked people on their ass. And that shockwave had to go over that 15-foot wall. It was pretty powerful.
Wow. Bonkers.
That was the two major things.
Was it
in my
just
first
crazy loud, even a quarter of a mile away, like ears were still ringing, or,
It-
you know, did you all look at each other and go, what the fuck was that shit?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we were actually standing in an award ceremony. They had us out in the field. Yeah, I'm not kidding. It's crazy. They had us outside the palace in formation, giving out awards for what we'd have already done, and up until that point.
Right.
So we're standing out here getting awards from our lieutenant colonel,
And then-
fucking huge bomb just boom and knocks people on their asses.
What did everybody do? Did they get up and scramble? And
Well, anybody still on their feet were just looking around like, God damn, that was big. And there's some people that are, not as large a stature, or just took them off guard that much. And we're just standing there, just basically in shock, like, holy fuck, we're still here.
right.
It was big. It was big. I mean, it took 1-inch rebar and twisted it back like it was
Nothing.
a limp spaghetti noodle. And our medics asked for permission to go. Permission? Fucking go.
Right.
And they obviously they shut down the ceremony, and we didn't have to go, or I didn't.
Was that like guys getting rank and Purple Hearts and that kind of thing, or?
Yeah, I wouldn't say Purple Hearts, but yeah, promotions and like maybe you got
Okay.
an ARCOM or a driver's badge, or
I gotcha. Yeah, just things
Kinda-
about meritorious achievement in the course of
Right.
duty kind of stuff. I gotcha.
yeah, challenge coins.
Right.
It was really petty ceremony, if you ask me. They could have waited till after service or after we got home to do that, but they want
Do
to
you
try to keep morale up.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Was it did they do that for morale boosting? That was going to be my question.
Yeah, I think it was a fluff sort of thing. Command is going, well, let's try and keep these people proud of themselves.
Right. Did you guys suffer from morale problems sometimes? And if so, when you
Yeah,
did
because-
suffer from morale problems, was it
Sometimes, because the Army is the only branch that does 12-month tours.
So
we're
the
there for an
length-
entire year.
so the length of the tour was not very streamlined, put a lot of drag on the personnel, and then the personnel would kind of start suffering, I guess, being homesick or just not having a break. And like, so when you did your 12 months, did you ever go back to the States during that time for like a week or two and
Yeah,
get,
you get 14 days leave every tour.
okay.
So depends on what's going on with your life.
So
or
in
how
one
many-
year, you got 14 days off in 1 year.
Yeah.
And you got to go back home.
Right.
Did you go back to Nebraska? What'd you do?
I think, no, my first tour, I come back to Nebraska. Came home to see my son and family for the 2 weeks and then shipped back. My second tour, I went to Dallas, Fort Worth, because I was in a relationship at the time. I went to see her first, and then we'd get together and then come back to Nebraska for vacation then.
Okay. So, and just out of curiosity, from the time of your first deployment to the time of your end deployment, was there a gap between that time and your second deployment?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I got 12 months at home.
So you went for a year, stayed home for a year, then went back for a year.
Right. Well, it was actually 15 months my first tour. Then I
Okay.
got 12 months home, roughly 12 months home.
So you guys got held over an extra 3 months.
Yeah. They extended our, well, it was either, I don't even remember how it went. So when we were in Falcon, they said, look, you guys can either volunteer to go to the green zone or you're guaranteed 3 months extension on your tour. So we all voted and we said, well, we'll go to the green
Go to
zone.
the green zone.
Them fucking assholes extended us 3 months anyway.
Anyway, oh my God.
So it was bullshit. It's one of those
Government efficiency.
If you know the trope, it's never be first, never be last, and never volunteer.
Okay.
I learned my lesson the hard way in basic training. However, I thought, maybe that's just teach me a quick little lesson. Don't be the squeaky wheel. Then our entire unit voted on it, and they fucked us again anyway. So the trope is true. Don't be first, don't be last, and never volunteer.
Was there any ever time?
But we got a year between tours. They call it a rapid deployment post.
Okay. Was there
So it
ever?
was in and out, all the time.
Did you guys ever have? And I don't want to say any names here if you did, but just out of curiosity, did you guys ever have any command problems where you had someone who was difficult that they had a, that either there was kind of like a consensus of difficulty, like this guy really sucks and we need to get him out of here, or did you guys ever experience some of that? I know I have a buddy who was in Afghanistan that had some issues with command, and like they had to kind of do some switcheroo stuff to make everybody happy. And did that ever happen with you guys?
A few times. Not that we had any control over it, but our battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel, he was a prick. One of the rules in the military is you don't put your hands in your pockets. You cannot smoke when you walk. This asshole would come out with these crazy ideas to get himself promotion points. The more we achieve, the better it makes him look.
Right.
So this asshole put us in stupid missions that we didn't belong being there. And then congratulate us while he's walking around with a hand in his pocket smoking a fucking cigar right in front of us. You're a smug piece of shit.
Rules for thee and not
throw a name out.
Right. Rules for thee, but not for me. Right.
Right. I'm not going to throw any names out, but he approved a mission where one of our mechanics went to a different fob, and that there was a generator there that belonged to either the Iraqi army or the Iraqi police. We are not supposed to work on foreign government equipment. But he approved that mission, sent one of our mechanics there, and it fucking killed him because he got electrocuted working on it.
Oh my gosh.
And then the son of a bitch got a promotion to the Pentagon after that tour. Fuck him. I know his name. Again.
No, I got you. That's cool.
So Lieutenant Colonel, if you know if you're hear this,
you know who you are. Right.
Yeah. Fuck you. Yes. The second time that it was a problem, it was me actually. And I'm not in the chain of command, but I had an issue with an E5 female type. I was kind of frustrated because of the way she would talk to me. Her demeanor was, to me, belittling.
Condescending.
And I blew up. I said, I'm not taking orders from women anymore. Probably the wrong thing to do, but God damn it, don't treat me like I'm a goddamn child.
Right.
So they restructured our platoon so that I didn't have any women above me anymore. Other than that, not bad. I had pretty good leadership.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question since you brought that up. I don't know if you know the hullabaloo about Pete Hesgeth, the guy being nominated for Secretary of Defense, and he was a kinetic guy. He was
currently or like back then.
No, back then he was a SIF guy. Back then he's been out, so I'm guessing you don't know who he is, and that's cool because this is great. I get to ask someone who doesn't know who he is. So Pete Hesgeth was a kinetic guy in SIF. I don't remember which SIF he was attached to, but it was a top tier SIF team, tier 1 SIF team under JSOC or somebody like that. And he got out, and he has been like a commentator for Fox now for a couple of years. And he was on the Sean Ryan show. And I don't know if you know who that is, but Sean Ryan was also tier 1 Navy SEAL, and he's got a pretty good show. There's a couple things I take issue with the show, but overall I like the Sean Ryan show a lot. I'm not making a dig at Sean Ryan at all. I tell Sean Ryan personally on X if I think he's done something that is like a faux pas, and I have no problem calling a spade and say, hey, I think you have a mistake there. He recently did something on Waco, and I think there's some things in there that are not accurate, but I'll take that up at another time. For the most part, Sean Ryan is a very square, solid guy, and if there's ever a problem, he's been the first one to come back on the show and say, hey, there's a problem with this optically, or I can't substantiate this, and so I can't support the message. So he's a square guy. But he had Pete Hesgeth on, and Pete, was talking about the current status of the military. So I'm going to kind of throw this question to you. Pete was saying, hey, look, having women on the battlefield is just not a good idea. Like, there are great roles for women in the military, but anywhere near the frontline service, it kind of creates a problem because we as men are protectors, and our attention can be drawn away from our mission with the desire to protect that which we perceive as weaker, or that which we perceive needs to be shielded and protected. And since most men are protectors in their family, protectors and providers, it causes distraction. And he also spoke a lot towards the issues of the DEI and the amount of millions and millions and millions of dollars being spent on DEI and transgender surgeries and all these kinds of these things that I personally, this is my opinion, I don't think should be included in the military package. Okay. That's just, if you're going to go from being a man to a woman in your military service, I somehow think that could just detract from the mission. You're a fighting force. You were designed that when an enemy rises up against the United States or touches our boat like Japan did in December 7th, 1941, or Iran tried to do, and you got to go and annihilate someone's surface forces and ground forces, that women can be a distraction. And so he's nominated right now for the Secretary of Defense by Trump, and a lot of knives have come out for him because of what he's said about the positions that some women hold in military. Do you feel that some positions held by women, and if you don't want to answer, that's fine, don't answer, but just curious, if you did want to answer, do you think that sometimes women may hold positions that may not be in the best interest of a fighting force, just out of curiosity?
Of course I do. Yeah. I personally don't believe women should be in combat arms roles. I don't believe that women should be in command of combat arms roles. Yeah. I'm not saying woman belongs in the kitchen, but
right.
You don't belong behind the trigger on the front lines. I was in support.
How do you feel about like the A-10, pilots? There's a couple A-10 pilots that are women, and F-18 Hornet, or is that just
to me that's on the front lines. However, yeah. I also believe that women have different neurological pathways than men, and they have the ability to
do things we just can't do.
Way through things, yeah, right. in general, but from what I've seen, and I've never met any special forces women, they tend to complicate things with thought and emotion versus just training.
Right.
Stick to the training.
And I don't.
The one issue that I had with the female sergeant was we were on a mission, and we had one of our vehicles had a mechanical failure, and she was terrified to get out of the truck. We're not trying to get out of the truck. We'd had tow straps zip tied outside our window, so we can either open a window or open the door, break that tow strap off, and hook it to the other vehicle and get going. Well, I was going to do that, and she freaked out about, we can't get out of the vehicle. We got to get going. Procedure says we stop and recover our own assets.
Right.
If I got to get out, I got to get out. She flipped out. That was when she started demeaningly, I'm in charge. You do what the fuck I tell you to do. I'm going to follow orders from big command, not you. Which is kind of ironic because TC is tank commander. She's in charge of the vehicle. But if you're going to neglect your soldiers and your equipment, somebody's got to step up and speak above you, whether you got rank over me or not.
Right.
So I think emotions get involved. And yes.
And then they get clouded by the
women-
gender issue. I think it inserts.
But
I think it inserts
like-
another. It's one issue when two guys, guys have a way of communicating with other guys. Here's the interesting thing I've kind of always noticed in life is that women are really good verbally at tearing people down because they don't normally get into like physical confrontations. We're like
they do it emotionally, yeah.
right. So like all guys kind of have this rule in the background, like you just don't say certain things to other guys because we all know that someone could seriously get hurt or injured. And so guys have they just have a different way of approaching conflicts with people, where when I watch women have conflicts, they will like incessantly keep going after someone either through tone or verbiage or whatever. And they may be very clever about it. They may not be very open. They may be like kind of discreet in their attacks, but they're still like attacking.
Someone.
Oh,
I just lost my earpieces. My earbuds died. Can you
no
hear me
problem. Yeah,
No problem.
So we had a little break there. Well, we had a little bit of technical difficulty, but we're back at it. So we were talking about women being in and the difficulty you had. And I kind of gave you my position. I told you about the potentially new Secretary of Defense's position. He doesn't want to see him in front line. And you expressed to me that you see some challenges there. But let's jump ahead now and go to your second tour. Was that second tour much like the first tour in Iraq?
No, it was much calmer.
Much more sedate, less incoming fire, and
we would take maybe a quarter of the mortars that we had in the first tour. Small arms fire was considerably sparse. My second tour, we were in Kurdistan. That's a northern region of Iraq. It's a religious group inside the Iraqi border.
Right.
They actually liked us being there because they're the only ones that ever stood up to Saddam, and he couldn't take them out. So they wanted us there. So we didn't get shot at near as much.
So you were in Kurdistan for the second part of your tour, and were you
specifically in the
and so first Cav was in northern Iraq during its second deployment, and were you guys mostly then at that point supporting the Kurds against ISIS or somebody, or
we were still supporting? No, we were attached to the 25th Infantry Division out of Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
So we would support our own guys and them.
Okay. Kind of a completely different.
Yeah, that's the leaf with the lightning bolt down the middle of it.
Right. Yeah, I lived in Hawaii. I know who you're talking about.
So you're familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all my early tender years were next to Pearl Harbor, and all my friends lived at McGrew Naval Housing District, and my dad was.
I've never been there.
Yeah. No, it was an all right way to grow up. I'm glad I'm not there anymore. It was an all right way to grow up. Right. So so your second tour was a lot quieter, and you end up. What year did that tour end? Did that end in like?
That was all of 2009. I shipped out on my birthday, January 3rd, 2009, and I came home like 2 days before Christmas.
Okay.
Of the same year. So it was a year-long tour. I think on my ERB it's listed as 12 months.
I gotcha. And then you left the Army in 2010 and went into the reserves?
Yeah, I signed a special contract.
Was that for retention reasons, or?
Yeah, they refer to it as stop loss. So the
Right.
retention was terrible, and they had a 75% chance of recall back into active duty. I thought, fuck that, I don't want to do that again.
Right.
So I signed a special contract. It was supposed to be 24 months with, they call it 30 days stabilization. They can't ship you out of state lines for more than 30 days. So essentially that's a training exercise.
So where
if it's
did
not
you
for training
go?
exercise-
Where did you go back to Fort Hood?
After my first tour, yes, that's where I signed the contract. And then when I got my discharge there, I moved back to Columbus, Nebraska, and
Okay.
I served that reserve time in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
There's a truck driver unit there, and I can't remember the unit numbers or anything, to be honest. I was kind of distraught with that unit. I couldn't believe that this is actually a military organization. It was so disorganized.
The one in Lincoln?
Undisciplined. Yeah, it was terrible. I mean,
Now-
if you got guys with rank, if I tell a guy to go take the trash out and he says, do it yourself, I outrank you 3 times, I wasn't real happy with it.
That's a leadership
Yes.
problem. It sounds like a leadership problem.
Well, that's weekend warriors versus professional soldiers.
Right. Right.
You know.
But that's only allowed because leadership allows it.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
That's an obvious leadership problem.
They don't take their job very seriously.
So
it's a serious career,
2010, you
Mhm.
exit the military. And what did that look like? What did you decide to do? Where did you decide to go? Did you go to school?
I had
Did
no
you-
plan. I
had
had
no
no plan.
plan?
I just wanted to get out and go home. I got home and I'm like, God, I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to go. So I got a hold of my dad. I'm like, hey, because they bought a house while I was gone, and they literally had an apartment in their basement because the house was remodeled to be an apartment. And actually, one of my high school teachers used to rent that basement apartment before my dad bought the house. So I stayed in one of my high school teacher's apartments when I got home in my dad's basement. And the only option I had at the time was, I'm going to file for unemployment. I've never drawn unemployment. Go to the unemployment office. Well, since I'm a vet, they have, vet reps that work for the unemployment office that help veterans reintegrate.
Right.
Well, I didn't have a plan, and the vet advocate there, he says, well, have you ever thought about going to school? I mean, you got like 30 grand in benefits. You can go to school for a couple of years, get a good degree. Well, I don't know, I never thought about it. For now, I just need a paycheck. So he signed me up for unemployment, and we started looking into school options. And he asked me what I want to do. I don't know. Again, I never thought about going to school. Well, let's take a look into it. I said, okay. So we went to the college, and we took just a basic, like a preliminary exam, see what I'd be good at. They compared my point or my score to the programs they had available, and welding came up. I thought, well, my dad's been a welder for a long time. I was welding, running a MIG gun in a manufacturing plant before I joined the Army.
Yeah.
Let's try that. So I did all the paperwork and started to go to school for welding. And it worked. I get a government paycheck. They pay for your tuition. They pay for your books. They pay for your tools.
Come on, Bella.
It still wasn't enough. I had to work 3 or 5 different other jobs while I was going through the process, but
We got
They built me
a
a
little
career.
visitor here.
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm listening. Shh.
No, that's all right. I was
Yeah,
just looking.
they decided they wanted to know where I was at.
Yeah. But it helped me build a career. So, through the military, the experiences that I've had, molds you into who you are. And then the benefits you get out of it can serve your future far beyond just developing you to be a little harder.
Right.
there are a great deal of benefits, and I took advantage of them. I think my benefits actually run out this coming year. I think it only lasts 15 years, and
Yeah.
that's kind of a shame, actually. But at this point, I've been doing what I do for almost 15 years. I don't think I could do a career change.
So let me ask you this. At the end of the day, from where you came from and where you ended up, are you happy that you went and joined the United States Armed Forces?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if I didn't, that
It wasn't going to end well,
I don't think I'd be here. I don't think my son would have a father.
right?
I wouldn't get to see the things that I've seen so far. You're familiar with deja vu.
Right.
Did you ever have that experience yourself?
I have had some moments of deja vu occasionally in my life, and
Do you still see it? I have a point to this, but do you still see it or get that feeling?
I have not. I had a couple points after I left the hospital. Like, I had this kind of aha moment. Like, wait a minute, maybe this is what's supposed to be. I haven't.
Right.
I left the hospital exactly a year ago, 2 days ago. 2 days ago was my 1 year anniversary of leaving the hospital. And you know, we've talked before. I left in horrible condition. Nobody really expected me to survive, except some of the immediate people around me who just was like, "You don't know this guy. This guy's fought his whole life. You know, don't give up on him. Just do whatever procedure you got to do." And they did. And I'm so fortunate that I lived. I feel like I had these moments of deja vu, and then I had this kind of epiphany over my friend. We've talked about him. His name is Matt Johnson, who passed away, who was with the United States Navy. And I just feel like sitting with you today is right where I'm right where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I'm supposed to be here with you today, listening to your story and whatever future stories come from veterans. God gave me this second chance, and I'm living it. And that's kind of where I'm at. I was like, wow, you know, I've seen this before. I've done this, and I just kind of felt like I was on the right track. You know, when I thought about my buddy, and I was just like, hey, you know what? I grew up all around the armed services. I unfortunately could not join. I was 4F from the get-go, flat feet. I had asthma, and I was diagnosed with ADHD in 1983, and I took amphetamines. And they said they could hide the amphetamine use, the clinical amphetamine use, and they could hide the asthma, but they couldn't hide the flat feet. So I couldn't join, but I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. Do you feel like you're where you're supposed to be?
Right. So like I said, I'm leading up to that. I think I've exceeded where I'm supposed to be. I haven't had deja vu in years. I couldn't tell you, probably 6 or 8 years. And I don't follow religion of any kind, but from what I've seen, I think that deja vu is, crazy or not, maybe previous lives. I feel like I've done this before, and that's probably what helped get me through what I've been through. But not having that deja vu effect makes me think that I did better than the last time. Crazy or not.
No, I get it.
I think I survived the mistakes I made in past lives. Now I've got to where I don't have it anymore. This must be new territory.
No, I see what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Wow.
Could be a kook, maybe not. I don't know.
No, hey, you know,
I survived more.
How do you explain those kinds of things? I mean, I could tell you a story. I don't want to get into it, but I have this unreal ability to know when somebody's killed, and it's happened. I woke up in the middle of the night and said, something's totally wrong. Looked at my partner and be like, something's totally wrong. She'd be just like, what are you talking about? Something's wrong with so-and-so. I pick up the phone, start calling, and then find out their sister shot themselves in the head that night. How do you explain that? How do you explain the fact that you knew you're 1,880 miles away from this situation? You feel this moment of absolute anguish somehow through the ether. You're connected to it. You know who's a part of it. You pick up the phone and start calling to try and track a person down, and then you find out, yeah, that person's sister shot themselves in the head.
And it might not be them directly, but something's disturbed them.
Something, yeah, something. It's happened with like three or four deaths in my lifetime. I apparently had an aunt that was the same way, and I don't have any. I can't offer any explanation. I mean, I have my own theories on it. I'm not going to go into it today, but yeah, I mean, there's something going on out there in the ether that we don't understand, and
so you're not the only one that's reacted, maybe not the same way, but similarly.
Right.
I don't know what to call it, but I think I didn't make it last time.
I saw something about a computer processing information the other day. This was wild. This was totally wild. And the theory was that the only way that this computer was processing this much information is that it had to be doing it in parallel universes at the same time. I wish I had the article in front of me to explain it more. Maybe I'll dive into that in one of my next shows. This thing about the parallel times. But I believe that we have access to information outside of our relevance in the moment that we're in, if that makes sense. Like I'm sitting here, you're sitting there.
Yeah, it's the Akashic Records, I think they call it.
Yeah, and so
that's another rabbit hole, though. But
right, yeah. I mean, maybe I should have you come back on and we just do a show about that. I mean, if you're hip to it,
I have to do some studying, but
no, but it could be interesting. It could be very interesting. So you're out now. You're 15 years down the road, and things are going well. You've been clean and sober for quite a long time, and a lot of things in your life have improved. And I want to tell you personally, I want to thank you for your service. I think there's a lot to politicize about why we went into Iraq, but at the end of the day, whether my heart is not with the politicians and the reasons why they may or may not have done things, my heart is always with the servicemen. One of the most moving things for me in my childhood was standing in a field of crosses. And if you go to Arlington National Cemetery or the cemeteries over in France or the cemetery at Punch Bowl Cemetery in Hawaii, and you stand among these crosses and you see these dates, born in 1920, died in 1943, and you realize the burden that sits behind that small memoriam of their name and the short, brief time that individual lived, and that they gave everything so that you and I have this fantastic thing called free speech. A lot of my shows are about free speech and the Constitution. And I believe that I directly owe you something for protecting the integrity of the Constitution. For me and even the people that don't understand what you gave in service of this country for the Constitution. I personally am forever thankful to every veteran that served, except maybe Dan Crenshaw. There's a joke in there. You have to go back and watch other episodes. No, I even appreciate Dan Crenshaw for the service he did. I just don't appreciate him as a politician now. I think that eye patch serves him well, and he's kind of a pirate. But every service member, even the saltiest of ones or the kookiest of ones, I will give them the debt that I owe them. And at the very least, it's thank you from the bottom of my heart for serving this country. We have, even though we have a lot of problems, we're still in the greatest country that the world has ever seen, the most freest country the world has ever seen, as long as we can hold on to it. And we would have never held on to it if it wasn't for the young men and women who served the United States Armed Forces through the Coast Guard, the Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, and the early militias. And that came out of the colonies. If it wasn't for these people, we wouldn't have anything we have. Anything you see behind me, the only reason I own it is because of veterans. Everything I own is because of veterans. They kept this country free. The only reason I get to do this podcast, the only reason I get to start from zero, I'm starting from zero after my stay in the hospital. I got zeroed out completely, like physically, financially, everything. The only reason I get to do this is because I live in this great country, and this great country was protected by people like yourself. So I want to say thank you. And that's important to me that you did that. And I think it's important to the other Americans who understand it doesn't matter why you signed up. You did sign up. You did serve. And I think there are a lot of great people in this country that will forever love you for that. And I love you for it. I'm not afraid to say it. I love any veteran that took the time out of their lives to go and do a very difficult job under very difficult circumstances, probably both personally and, the environment. Certainly someone lobbing mortars at you is certainly not fun. So I really want to thank you, Aaron Lewis, for taking the time to come on the show today. It's important to me. And I hope the people watching this is important to them too, So this is
I have a rebuttal to that. Not all of it, just a quick one, but there's a bit of a backstory. After a certain amount of time, you kind of lose the means to respond to thank you for your service. It's
right.
You kind of get to the point where don't even mention it. I heard something from a story from an older guy, not a personal experience. It was something I saw online. My rebuttal to you is you were worth it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do.
I think that I'd like to see more vets pick up on that. You were worth it. Not thank you, no big deal, I was just doing my job. No, you were worth it.
No, I think everybody in this country, there's a lot of people I don't like, but at the end of the day, they make up this country what it is.
Yeah.
And they contribute something. Right.
Ultimately, the bill comes due, and somebody's got to carry that weight. And
right.
Looking back on it, I did it for my own personal selfish reasons, but there is a bigger picture.
Right. And I hope to illustrate that in these stories. That's why I want to, your history of the Iraq War is unique to you. Nobody else can tell it for you. When we talked in the beginning, I told you what my mission was. I'm just kind of a blank piece of paper to help you facilitate telling your story. And I really do appreciate you coming on. And I hope that others see this and get the courage to come forward and tell their story too. I also am looking forward to talking to some of the other men that served with you. You were kind enough to give me their phone numbers, and I've talked to one or two of them on the phone, and I'm looking forward to sitting down with them also and doing the same thing.
So you did get a hold of a couple of them at least?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Cool.
It's been about a week or two ago. It's been crazy with the holidays and everything. Just everybody's traveling for Thanksgiving, and then it's December. People got Christmas shopping, and all their stuff they're doing at the end of the year.
I've got
So-
a couple of them that I really hope will get in on it. My old platoon sergeant, platoon leader's in.
I spoke with him.
There's
I
a
think.
couple others. Justin Fayes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my lieutenant. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go actually see him.
Was in the
next week
Marine
for-
Corps, the Army, then the Marine Corps,
Just
and then
no.
who was in 4 branches of service? Someone I talked to was in 4 branches of service. I think they went Marine, Army, Marine, Air
That
Force.
wasn't me then. That must have been one of your other interviews.
Maybe. I've talked to so many people in the last 4 weeks,
Right.
and it's been
But I
just
got a few more on the list too.
no, yeah. Send them my way. Tell them, by all means, tell them your experience. I don't think it's as
Yeah.
intimidating as maybe some people think it is. It's just sit down, have a beer, talk about it, and
We've actually talked about this before. Like when people ask you what it's like, and their attention span is like 45 seconds. This is years of our life. Don't
Right.
wait 45 seconds for a really deep question.
right,
Like
Yeah,
these
it's-
guys are career men. I'm going to send you mostly career men if I can, because that's what most of them are. It's going to take more than even us. We're at 6:30. We've been doing this for right about 2 hours. If you want to do a part 2, I'm in on it. But these guys did it for 20 years, not 5 or 7. It might take a little longer.
I'm sure. Growing up, I heard all these stories, even into my 20s. Just crazy stories. Either guys would talk, a little bit, and you'd hear it over time, like maybe over a 5-year span, you'd hear something like truly hair raising or something like that. Like I have a buddy, his name is Joe Belden. His dad was a forward observer during Korea. And at one point in time, there was some kind of ceasefire or something going on. Like they weren't supposed to be fighting because it was Christmas or a holiday. And there was kind of like a sort of a tentative truce or something and he saw thousands of these Chinese, just thousands of them. And they were all gathered around barrels of fuel oil or something, trying to keep warm. And he told me, he said, I got pretty mad because I was sitting out here freezing to death in the cold. I had nothing to warm myself. I couldn't be detected, didn't want to be detected. And I'm freezing my ass off. And these guys are all standing around. I could see them, just hundreds of them standing around all these barrels just everywhere. And so he just decided to get on the radio and be like, the enemy's on the move. Here's your coordinates. Fire Willie Peters. Called in Willie Peters to set the fuel on fire, burst these fuel drums, and it threw fuel all over these Chinese. And then, of course, the white phosphorus ignites them all. And he said, I saw thousands of, running human torches all over. He said, at first, I didn't even realize that there was that many of them. I could only see like so many moving around the light, but there were so many more in the shadows. And he got mad, but at the end of the day, he probably did the right thing. We're talking about the loss of human life, thousands of people. He calls in, starts firing. I don't know. He said like 8 or 9 tubes of artillery started firing, and they can lay down a lot of heat in, a few minutes. I wouldn't want 8 or 9 artillery tubes pointed at me. No, especially if the first ones are all white phosphorus and catching everything on fire. But, that was probably actually a smart choice. I saw an interview with a veteran who was like, yeah, I killed 20 guys, like hand to hand. He said, I probably killed a couple thousand with artillery. There's another guy that, called artillery in, and he goes, I got tired of shooting them, so I just started beating them to death with the end of my rifle. And I was like, holy cow, this guy's like a maniac. I'm glad he was on our team. And he was just like, there was an endless supply of Chinese. It didn't matter if I killed 20 or 40. He was like, I was just doing my part. And, you hear stories like this growing up, just the craziness of it all. And And I want to hear it all. I want to talk. You know what? Who I want to talk to, believe it or not, I want to talk to cooks. Like, I want to talk to guys who are like cooking for like battalion size elements and just what kind
I
of
don't know any of them.
But just can you imagine the shit that goes down in a kitchen cooking for that many guys? Just the antics that probably go on. I mean, I bet you they got some stories. I'm serious. Like, everybody I talk to, doesn't really matter what they did in the military. They got stories. They got interesting. They all have like interesting life lessons. You
Can I
know?
interrupt you for a second?
No, go ahead.
I have an interesting story. My earpiece is beeping at me again, which means the battery's going to die. I studied a bladesmith. His name is Frank J. Richtig. He died in 1977, but he'd been making knives all the way back to the end of World War One.
Oh wow!
I got to meet his nephew. I think if you're willing, let's do a part 2. Remind me about that knife his nephew told me about, if you would.
Okay.
It was about, I think it was Omaha Beach.
Okay. Yeah, why not do a part 2?
And it was a soldier in World War II, I think. It was on Omaha during D-Day, so it must have been Omaha. I'd like to tell you that story.
Okay. Yeah, we could do
It's
a round
amazing.
2. Why don't we call it quits here and look forward to a round 2? And this will be, this has been an awesome interview. I want to thank you for your time. But you're right. We probably should wrap it up. And, I don't know how many people will see this for the holidays. I don't know. Well, I'll get it edited and I'll show it to you first, and then we'll go from there. But anyway, we've been talking with Aaron Lewis, and very happy to have you on the show. 2 tours in Iraq, left as an E4. I don't know that there's much else to say other than I want to thank all you castaways, hooligans, punk rockers, outlaws, and pirates out there for listening to the show. Like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. If you have a friend or a family member who is in the U.S. Armed Forces and you think they got a story, by all means, I'll leave my contact information down below. Get a hold of me. I would love to sit down with them and talk with them just like we're talking with Aaron Lewis today. And with that, do you have any last words?
Lead the way.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for being on the show. We'll see you all again soon. You all have a great night. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye.